What does world-class real estate look like to you?
Try to combine old-fashioned traditional estate agent values, but with all the modern tech that can help you move that forward.
Excellent communication is at the heart of what they do.
Great real estate looks like strong leadership.
Consistency.
This episode is sponsored by Iceberg Digital.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Wall. I'm joined by Mr. Ian Macbeth. How are you, pal?
I'm all good. How are you doing, Mark? You always ask me, how are you?
I'm good. I have this belief, I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, that when someone asks you how you are, the way you answer that question can often then dictate how you actually feel and how your day goes, like a bit of like affirmation type thing. Yeah. When someone, if I say to someone, "Oh, how are you?" and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm not so bad," or "Oh yeah, I'm all right."
Yeah, so, I think it was my eldest daughter said, no, maybe someone else, maybe it was a niece or a nephew said, "I'm fine." I was like, right, give me a score then. 1 really good, 2 not so good. Give me like a number. Rob Brady's great at that as well. He's like, he wants a number out of 1 to 10 or something like that, or maybe 1 to 3. I don't know. But yeah, no more fine is his tagline. You know, kind of that's
the mental health thing, that isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the thing that I think typically blokes say, "Oh yeah, I'm fine," when actually they're not. So we have it as part of our mastermind, that rating score, don't we? That when people come in, personal, business, what are you? How are you rating yourself? Mine will always be more on the optimistic side. That tends to be how I live my life. Sometimes maybe too optimistic and not realistic enough, but I'm all right with that. I think the more you are optimistic, the more good stuff that will happen to you, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've got to look at things positively to get positive results, for sure. And we were in. So the guests that we've got on today, I was introed, I should say, by a PR company that I work with, and they said, "Great guy, got to get him on the show. Got a really interesting product." And there's a lot of topic at the moment around like AI, Rightmove prices, portals. There's all the big rumours of, sales with Zoopla, Rightmove, on the market. Had the same thing happen recently. And we all know that the portals haven't really evolved drastically with the implementation of AI. And I thought, right, well, let's get him on the show because he's got a different product that revolves around geotagging. And if you don't know what geotagging means, don't worry, because neither did me or Mark, but he is going to explain it in the show. So yeah, Steve is someone that's created, with obviously some other tech people, effectively an app called Property Drive-By. And we're going to get him on to talk about it, how it's going to impact things, whether it's city, whether it's regional, whether it's something that might be of interest to you as a listener. And even if it isn't, it's just interesting to get a different take on portal searching and how technology is evolving and where estate agency or more the buyer experience could potentially go. I think is probably a fair thing, Mark.
Yeah, and I think the episode will probably challenge your thinking on that typical customer journey. And that's the big thing that I sort of sat down and took away, that actually just because it's done one way now doesn't mean it's going to always be done that way. So let's dive in and get Steve on, shall we?
Yes. Steve, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you, Ian. Thanks for having me.
Good.
Yeah, thanks very much for joining us this morning, Steve. We'll start, as we do every week, with our headline question. It's, what does world-class real estate look like to you?
Thanks, Mark. I think world-class real estate for me is, as much as anything, just about a change in how people actually search for property, the access and experience to consumers when they're looking for their dream home. And I would say this is obviously the founder of the Property Drive-By, in that, where we've created something which will change the way and experience in how people actually do search for property, enabling them to do it in their day-to-day life, walking or driving down the road or walking the dog, going for a jog, and they can capture property details globally. You asked about whether what world-class real estate is, but with our geolocational app, you could do that anywhere in the world as long as property's listed. So that feels like world-class real estate.
Thanks, Steve. To give people some context on drive-by, I mean, there's a lot of chatter, and we've had quite a few guests on talking about Rightmove and its kind of monopoly of the market and the prices that keep going up and up and up. I think inflation sits somewhere around 2.5%, whereas most agents are seeing hikes between 16 and 18% on their costs for Rightmove in the last 12 months, which, is a bit demoralizing as we work hard, but it's a necessity at the moment because it is a UK public favourite. It's a household app on the majority of adults' phones that have rented or bought. They don't delete it. It stays there. So it's a challenge because there does feel like a bit of entrapment for agents. Drive-by, I guess, ultimately is something that it's not just a portal. It's got different tech to it. So do you want to just give us kind of the 60 seconds, not elevator pitch, but explainer of what it is? I've read the Telegraph article, watched the promo video. It looks great. Personally, I think it's very city led, but it looks great. And I'd love to give the audience and the listeners a bit more context of the thinking behind creating it, if that's okay.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be city led though, Ian. Obviously, you've got to start somewhere with getting critical mass of properties onto the app. Okay, but it is the first truly geolocational property app in that, you don't need a for sale board outside of a property now. Okay, the property is pinpointed to that location, so you could walk or drive past that property, and it would show you the internal details of that property as you're walking or driving past, or you put it on the drive-by mode and you drive around your favorite 3 or 4 streets. That doesn't need to be in a city. It could be, out in the sticks, somewhere out in rural areas. And it would actually highlight properties that perhaps you wouldn't have seen because there wasn't a for sale board, or they were down a country lane to a degree, right? So I think everybody knows that, virtually all agents will be using Rightmove. It is to a degree a monopoly. Yet you've got Zoopla and you've got OTM, but we know that the majority of searches are done via Rightmove. But there's a lot of agents that you only need to read the PR out there. There's a lot of agents that are frustrated with paying $2,000 and more a month, and feel like it's crippling. So we set this out as an option, potentially, a bolt on. We're not expecting to topple Rightmove anytime soon. However, this has got a sense of virality about it. I think that how often do people actually walk past a property and go, "Oh, I wonder what that looks like on the inside"? Well, listen, tell them that in real time. They'll see the interior shots and they can communicate with the agent actually when they're outside of that area. And on the flip side of that, I think there's, how many times have you gone to see a property that looks great on Rightmove or Zoopla, and then you've gone outside and then there's a gang of youths hanging about out in the street, and the environment doesn't feel quite as welcoming as it looked like on the photo, right? Well, in this instance, you will know that because you're actually in situ outside of that property and can communicate directly with the agent if you like it. So I think, in a nutshell, it's about immediate real-time searching rather than looking at something on your desktop or your your laptop or even your phone at home. And dare I say it, it feels a little bit property porn-like as well, because you could be walking along and that can create a virality that. You tell your friends about it. I was walking down the street and I could see inside every property that was listed for sale that fit my criteria. So I think people will be talking about it significantly.
What I like about it, Mark, is I see a few different places that this can work. We were talking before about an old product that I used to love for board counts, called Visi Homes, that we used to love for board counts. And I could see estate agents downloading this to create their old school board counting, like where you kind of drive around a niche village, for example, to get an idea of market share in a more digital fashion. Because like you say, the boards, I do feel that boards probably only are attached to about 60 to 70% of properties these days that are for sale or sold. So it's kind of, okay, it gives you an eye piece, but it's a bit irrelevant in terms of market share. But you could see it that way. The other thing that I quite like when I was kind of looking at it as it kind of says, turning the street into search, is I've got this whole aspiration to, when I kind of retire, to try and find a really sort of lovely rural village between the south coast and where I live now. It's about 2-hour drive to the coast, and an hour between where I am now and the coast is kind of the target market. So for us, if we go to the New Forest, I'm endlessly trying to look at Rightmove to get an idea of what those sort of properties are. But I could just plug this in while I'm on my little, weekend trip, and I could collate a little bit of an idea of where I might end up, which I thought there was quite a good way to do that, because there's nothing like that at the moment for me. That's my thinking, Mark. What about yours?
Sorry, Steve, we're going to say something.
I was just going to say, one of the settings on it, you just put it on the drive-by element of the mode, and you just press start when you start your journey. You wouldn't want to do it for hundreds of miles, right? Because it'd pick up too many properties. But as you entered into the New Forest, for argument's sake, you press start, and then when you get to your location, press stop, and it'll pick up all the properties that were on those roads during that part of the journey, which you could review at a later stage, which is quite sexy, I think.
Yeah, this to me sounds like it's making the mobile experience much more mobile in terms of, if you get your Rightmove app at the moment, you can search by current location, and then they set the parameters as to how far outside that area you can do. And often it jumps, and it then, where we are, 1 mile is kind of typically about where you want to be. It then jumps to 3 miles, and you're getting properties that actually you wouldn't want to, really consider. Whereas actually this tracking of a route will be really useful for people that commute, or your example, Ian, about people who perhaps are unfamiliar with areas and want to try and find out a little bit more about the properties. But it does feel a little bit more. So your answer in terms of world-class real estate really comes down to the consumer experience. So it is making the consumer's experience of looking for homes different to what it is now. And I actually think one of the challenges, if agents are going to try and challenge Rightmove, or the portals are going to try and challenge Rightmove, it's a big challenge, because the consumer experience there is very good because all the properties are there. So actually, this is taking a very different view on it, and saying, actually, let's make the consumer experience, the consumer is in the house buyer, when they're scrolling on the phone, actually, let's make it more interactive. And a result of that is that you can make the experience better, but also probably more accurate for them. They're not having to trawl through properties that would deviate their commute or extend their commute, by a lot, in my opinion. Yeah,
no, I would agree with that. And I think the aim is also to make life easier for agents as well, because within the app, you can create route maps for clients and say that, send it to them, communicate within the app. You say, right, we've got 6 properties on these 2 roads, have a drive past them, and it will give them the directions from property A to B to C to D. So obviously that can save agents time. To a degree, they can have unaccompanied viewings. Have a little driver about these 6 properties. Tell us which ones you like from the outside. So you're narrowing down the search rather than, being called out to multiple viewings. So I think that's beneficial to agents. Obviously, in terms of the pricing, look, we're very aware that we need critical mass of property, like perhaps not quite like Rightmove to start with, but we've got 45,000 properties listed in London and the South East at the minute. We're now pushing the advertising to take it nationally. I think critical mass to us feels like 250,000 properties for sale and rent in the UK. It's like having a dating site with not enough hot guys and girls on the site, right? You do need that critical mass, which is why we need it. We need agents to get behind it. We're very well funded. I own one of the biggest independent media agencies in the UK. We've got media partnerships coming down the line with across TV, radio, national press, digital. So we are going to get it there, but we're not going to get it there without buying intransigence from agents. So, ultimately agents don't like this monopoly of Rightmove. Well, sometimes you've got to be prepared to actually go, okay, we're going to give this a go, right? Because even when we're at a charging structure, we're going to be talking about £199 per month per agency branch. It's not going to be £2,000 or 1,200 quid or whatever. It's an affordable bolt-on to this. But we're not going to be charging anybody any fees whatsoever until we start generating them a reasonable quality of leads. And then the conversation is with them. It's not conversation now. I sign up now, gives you your bank details, and we'll charge you when you get X amount of leads. Yeah. It's give us your property feeds. Let us do the national marketing. Let us give something which consumers like and consumers will talk about. And then at a later stage, we'll have the conversation about whether you think it's worth paying less than a couple of £100 a month.
Can I ask, Steve, what has the feedback been like from early? I'm saying early consumers. I'm not sure how long it's been going or tested. Can you just let us know what the feedback from buyers has been like?
Yeah, I mean it's seamless, and I think that's seamless and fun are probably the two words which have been used most. Pardon me, and that the feedback from consumers to us is that obviously they want more property on there as well, because we've embarked on the start of a national advertising campaign, and that is always the risk here, right? That when we started in London and the Southeast, you've got the best part of 50,000 properties on there. There's plenty for them to see. All right. We've had some negative feedback when we started our partnership with the Sunday Times and the Times, in that some consumers are saying, or property buyers are saying, I love the app. However, I can't find anything in Nottingham. Okay. And we're working with Angels Media and Tony, who obviously introduced us, who seems to know everybody in the property industry, by the way, to bring on the big agency groups and the independents to make sure that there's enough stock for consumers to see. And I think that's the thing that needs to change within the next 3 months before we really push on with the TV advertising and really get this in the face of property buyers and renters.
Steve, I really like the concept of it. I think it's something which, first time buyers and modern families that are upsizing will really kind of embrace, because it's just one of those things that, much like a Strava, I'm into my running, much like a Strava, I'm interested to track my run and see the elevation and see that data. And it's only a snapshot afterwards, but it feels like the same sort of tech, but I probably could turn it on when I go for a run, to be fair, and look at the properties around there. But it feels like to me, something that's just in the way of life. The Runner app that people are using now as well is a prime example of this sort of geotech. But one of the things that I'm wondering is, do you have a town, or do you have somewhere where you've got 100% of the agents? Like for me, I started my career in Bracknell. There's 10 agents. There's 40,000 chimney pots. It's high volume. It's the demographic that would really embrace this app. Have you managed to get a town yet where you've got 100% of the agents to really localize it? Because it feels, if you could do that with the agents and get 100%, you could really market to that individual town as the public and prove concept in one sort of location. As it's kind of everywhere, but not at capacity, it feels a bit sort of nothing until it's like really condensed in a small area. Have you tried that at all yet?
No, I mean, it's a really valid point, Ian. Unfortunately, and I know this from being in advertising for the best part of 35 years, so the localized advertising is much more expensive than national advertising per 1,000 people you're reaching. As I said, we've got we've got good, strong financial backing already, and we want to take this nationally. I think probably the most logical way for us to do it is to actually have coverage within every part of the country, and have agents in every part, even if that meant you only had 10% or 20% of agents, but you have coverage across the full country. Because the early adopters who will download this app perhaps are, that they want to see stock in the local area. It's a novel way to search. I think the first agents that come on board across the rest of the country will actually see the most benefit, because it'll only be their properties listed for sale, rather than having, all 10 agents in your town. So, and what are the options for you advertising wise? Well, within, say, one town in Essex or whatever, you're really going to be governed by local press, some local billboards, obviously digital marketing, even your radio advertising is probably going to be too far outside the catchment area, for want of a better word. So we're going down the national route, and with the, that's the way we're going to be going with it. Obviously, we did start with London and the Southeast, because we could do advertising on ITV London and in the Metro and the Standard. So, they're big reach media channels. So, but I don't think the aim is for us to go into each individual town.
Can I ask the question, sort of why? Your background is advertising, and you own an advertising company and the media aspect of things. But what made you kind of want to get stuck into this part of it? Where did that kind of problem sort of kick in, or that solution that you were trying to solve, or just the appeal? I don't know whether you're just passionate about property, but where did this sort of idea to go, I'm going to do this? I'm interested.
I am passionate about property, and that I own development in the Dominican Republic, or development being built in the Dominican Republic, and I've been involved in property in London as well as an investor. I like a really good idea when I see it, so we tend to do media for equity deals. So we've got equity positions in 20 plus businesses. So, but this to me was something which I thought which could change the face of property search globally. We're taking it into the States as well with a really senior politician who I probably shouldn't mention his name yet, but it'll all come out in the PR. So it's all about getting involved in markets which you can see that you can make a bit of a seismic shift in it, really. But who doesn't love property? Everybody does. And there's the guys behind it are very, very property centric as well. So we just want we don't want to see a position where you have a monopoly, for want of a better word. And I do feel like it's a right move monopoly. Obviously, you've got Super on the market, but
it is. It absolutely is a right move monopoly, but until that consumer experience changes, in my opinion, I don't think people want to be going to loads of different websites. I don't think as a buyer, you don't sit on your sofa and go through the different estate agent websites. It's easier to go on to Rightmove. What this is saying is change it and let's use a different experience to try and attract people to use the app, so then agents have got another alternative free from Rightmove.
I think you're absolutely right, Mark. I think it's just about being on the move, isn't it? Searching for something on the move, something which grabs, it just makes people think it's a bit novel. They'll tell their friends about it. It will have that virality, because there's nothing particularly new or novel that Rightmove have done in recent years, right?
No, agents will agree with that 100%. And can you just explain, if there's anyone listening that doesn't understand the geolocation, how that makes a big difference between what you're doing and what other property apps are doing?
Yeah, I mean, particularly for developers, by the way, because I forgot to mention this, you can have a brownfield or a greenfield site with no properties on it. And this is about you home builders, developers, smaller developers, that you pin the site is pinpointed, and then as somebody is walking down the street past this greenfield site, it will serve them CGIs of what that development could look like. New homes coming here from 400,000 before the boards are even up. So remind me again, sorry, Mark, about the question. I went off in a little bit of a tangent.
I was just asking about the geolocation element of it and how important that is and how different it is to maybe how people would search normally. Is it the same sort of tech of locating, like what 3 words, use exact positions? Is that the difference?
Yeah, it's exact positions. It's just a geolocation or pinpoint, right? So everywhere's got obviously a longitude and a latitude to it. So the property feeds, when we bring them into the app, everything will be pinpointed to that to that pinpoint.
Steve, where does the data come from? Where's the source?
The source
is in the property location. Where are you getting that information from?
The location is would be probably better off speaking to our tech guy. Our tech.
I just wondered, is it a scrape of the portals, or are you plugging into the CRM for the agent?
No, we get the property feeds from the agents, okay. And they're uploaded into the app. So that's probably sometimes the most problematic thing, right? Because agents use a multitude of different CRMs and got the different feeds, etc., etc. So we just integrated with GlueDog, which I've got, I think, 90% of all the property feeds. So it's fairly seamless now. It can be done within sort of 24 hours anyway. So
yeah, GlueDog is probably going to be a really nice way. The super geeks over there are able to make everything kind of connect up in the property game these days, which is awesome.
Thank God for them.
No, I like the concept of it, and I think it's something which it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. I'm interested to know, our audience is estate agents, so obviously it's a prime target audience for you. But how have you found kind of liaising with estate agents, and how have you found? I know you're not quite. Well, you are ultimately selling to agents, so how have you found that experience as a business?
Yeah, well, the majority of them have been really receptive. I think the larger groups, or it can be a little bit snooty. Although I'm out with the Guild, me and Mackenzie at the Guild tomorrow, and we've had really positive conversations with Property Franchise Group, and we're in conversations with Connells as well. We want the big groups on, obviously, but we want the independents on, and I think they. In general, they've been really, really receptive, and obviously because it's free of charge at the minute, they've been happy to sign up. I had a really funny conversation with one agent though that actually said he was quite happy that Rightmove's fees were going up because it meant that it would put pressure on smaller independents, which I just thought was a really bizarre thing to say. I'm happier paying more because it means that I'll have less competition. I don't know if you've ever come across that.
I mean, it's pretty cutthroat competitive, our industry, right, Mark? So it doesn't surprise me that there's an arsehole.
I'm not overly surprised by that comment, because it does. You are right. It is a competitive industry, so people will like. I mean, I suppose it depends how your mindset works. I think it's a bit weird. I wouldn't want my costs to go up just so my competitors' costs go up, but it depends how you run your business, right?
Yeah, I found it quite bizarre. Never mind, you should put them up by 50%, obviously. You get on the plane to my ships, I can get that sorted.
So from your point of view then, Steve, the $199 per month, did you say that was per branch?
Yeah, per branch.
And is there any, obviously when you do something like that per branch, the big issue that a lot of the independents have, and obviously you've said you want to crack a Connells or one of the big nationals, and I get that, because once you've got one of the big ones, the magpie effect kicks in. Mm-hmm. The big issue that estate agents have got with third parties is that there's a deal for corporates and there's a deal for everyone else. Are you kind of looking at it and saying, well, we have to strike a deal with multi-branch agents, or are you kind of looking at it as this is what the price is across the board? it's something that I guess the estate agency world is quite interested to know, because I get it. If you're selling the product to someone that's got 8 branches, okay, there is a case of, you know, bulk buy gets discount in every way you look. Or are you kind of just saying, look, this is just rule of thumb across the board? What's your kind of thoughts on that?
I think the price point is fair, and you know, the tech has been built, and it's taken significant budget. And obviously the opportunity is to really take this globally. But from the UK's perspective, obviously we do have, you've got several very big agent groups. And I agree, you want them on board. But I thought, you know, there's been recent sort of publicity and stuff like the Negotiator. I've forgotten the agent's name actually, but he's really pushing back against Rightmove's charging and how unfair it is to independent agents.
Sean
is a good friend of ours. We've had him on the show in the last couple of episodes, which is this is a nice sort of follow on from his episode actually.
And I think it's a really fair comment actually. I mean, if I was going to say anything in relation to this, it's let's just talk about it. The investment has gone into the business. If my intention is certainly not to discount heavily to multi-agency groups, or the big agency groups. And if that means that we start with a host of independents, that's what we do. Obviously, it just takes a bit longer to get the critical mass, right?
My advice on that, based on the conversation that we had with Sean, would be to, I think most agents will understand that a 100-branch corporate is more valuable than a single branch independent. Yeah. And I don't think they would have a problem paying a different figure. The problem that Sean is highlighting is the discrepancy between an independent paying £2,000 a month and the corporate paying £250 a month per office. So that discrepancy now is massive, but there is no transparency from Rightmove, and that was what Sean was. That's what Sean is trying to get together to try and find out why this discrepancy is there and why it exists. So my advice on that would be, just be a little bit more transparent with the agents. I think if people know the situation, they can then make a decision where Rightmove have gone, is there a deal for this and there's a deal for that, and that just ultimately, when there is this view that there is such a big discrepancy, just frustrates agents. So I don't think agents would have a problem with a different deal as long as it's pretty clear.
Yeah, and that will be clear. And there's certainly not going to be, as you said, about 80% discount for the big groups. There's no way on that. But we're approachable people, and it's a commercial business. Yeah, it is a commercial business, but we're certainly not trying to take anybody's pants down on pricing. We've tried to make it as fair as possible, and I don't think there's anything fairer than saying, right, come on board free. We'll actually get a really significant national marketing campaign together in order to push this forward and change consumers' points of view on how they actually search on the move. And obviously, we're potentially saving agents time, and time is money. By allowing people to be out on the street and actually seeing properties in real time, and hopefully that will deliver actually better quality red hot leads because they're actually in situ outside of a property. Yeah. So, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel necessarily here, but I think this is something which will capture the public's imagination and hopefully generate really good quality leads for agents.
Yeah, nice. And thank you for coming on and explaining it. And obviously we'll drop a few links to bits and bobs in the show notes as well, so that people can kind of check it out and agents can download the app and have a little play around with it as well. I like the tagline of kind of turning the street into search. I think it's quite cool. It's a different sort of option for people out there, and hopefully people embrace it. And for me, I feel the monopoly that Rightmove have will only change once there's about 20% of the estate agency population in the UK that come off it, and it's no longer the place to go where a buyer can search 100% capacity. But I think it will need to be under 80% before the public really look at it and go, actually, the value is in the agents' websites. As agents, we want to champion our own database, our own websites, and we want to take back control of the data ultimately. But ways to challenge the portals that do feel they've got control of it is a positive. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on, Steve, and sharing the product with us. It sounds really interesting, and I'm sure me and Mark will check it out, and maybe we'll chat offline about, you know, kind of how it unfolds and stay in contact really. So yeah, appreciate you coming on the show.
No, thanks, Ian. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks very much. A massive thank you once again to Steve Foreman from the Property Drive-By for joining us. We said on the intro, Ian, it was going to challenge people's thinking and look at that customer journey in a bit of a different way. It wasn't something before we met Steve that I'd heard of or thought about, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But in the day and age where we are, where customer experience and customer journeys are so important, it does challenge the status quo a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And it's something that I actually use almost daily, weekly with my Strava app for tracking all of my runs. You know, it's quite a similar thing. It just so happens that especially with the mileage that I often do, if I was tracking my runs and also it was flagging properties that were for sale while I was going around, I wouldn't have a short list, I'd have a long list, but it would be something that'd be quite helpful actually. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see that technology is out there now. Bringing it into the property world is really interesting. And kind of before we wrap up on today's episode, I thought I would share something that I did this week, which was the first time I saw where AI could actually, because for the first time ever, I was like, maybe AI can crush these portals in a slightly different way. I had someone contact me and say, I'm interested in this property or this type of design of property on an estate that was built 5 years ago. It was a particular design called the Ealing design, built by Legal & General 4.5 years ago. There's about 25 of them on this estate. And I was like, well, it's under offer. It's sold through one of the avocado partners, which is why they messaged me. There's no way of me searching the design on Rightmove. And I was like, I roughly know what they're worth, but that's a bit of a guesstimate, isn't it, when you do it that way?
Be extended or anything, yeah.
Yeah, but I knew the design, I knew the build, I knew the development. So I did put it into chat and said, I want to know if there's anything online for sale or sold of the Ealing design built by Legal & General back in 2020 in Crowthorne, Berkshire. And chat did it for me and pulled up the link of the one that is under offer that the client had sent me and another one that's under offer. There wasn't any for sale, but it did the job that Rightmove couldn't do. And it's the first time I'd experienced that. And it did it better than Rightmove. And if I was a buyer, that was, so now if you really know chat, you can set up an alert as a notification. But there's two parts to that. One, the experience for me was better. And two, if you're an agent and you know your marketplace and you know your designs, if other buyers are doing that, but you don't know it's an Ealing, you could be missing a trick by not leveraging this new tech that is available and out there, basically. So it's just something to think about, I thought.
Yeah, and that is really what the conversation is about. Does the new tech improve the customer experience and the customer journey? And Steve was talking about it being a more fun and interactive way of searching for houses. It's going to be really interesting to see how the portal market develops, isn't it?
Yeah,
because we've talked about it. That Rightmove homepage has been very set for a long period of time. Now, if chat or the Property Drive-By or something else improves upon that, how quickly do Rightmove pivot and make a change? Because actually, it is very. It's been like that for years. They changed the price brackets recently. That was about the biggest change that's happened on Rightmove in the last couple of years. I would suggest. So
it's a watch this space moment, isn't it? We'll have to see, but it shows that there is evolution happening. So yeah, great way to kind of get an insight through someone that's created the tech, tried to challenge it, tried to do something different in the portal space, and we'll see how it unfolds. And we'll put some links to the Property Drive-By website. You can download it for free now. I think it's in use. I think it's functional especially in London for London agents.
London and the home counties, I think. And it does, we talked about that. It feels like as you're on the tube, or as you're on, commuting wise, it feels like that could be quite a big sell for them. But wish him every luck. We'll be watching with interest to see how it develops. So every credit and best of luck to Steve and the team there. A massive thank you to joining us, and thank you for listening. As you know, we do this because we love our industry. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please share it out on social media. I'm Mark Worrell. He's Ian Macbeth. Thank you very much. We'll see you again next week.